Hey Team Andrews, John Crable here, your instructor for case studies. Needed to come to you with a recorded video on the round 5 results. I will not be able to make it to the web conference this evening, and so needed to get this to you hopefully with a couple hours to spare before we would have had an opportunity to sit down. So if you just look at the snapshot when you look into the dashboard of selected statistics for round 5. Team Andrews killed it, man. You guys did a fantastic job. And just to continue the conversation that we started last week, I think we're looking at slight incremental improvements at this point in time, because you guys have done a fantastic job of not only building consistency but maintaining it and then accelerating into a really high stratosphere of results. Not only are you doing a good job when it comes to the student-led teams, but I think when you look at all teams in this simulation for this section, you guys have far exceeded what anyone else has been able to accomplish. So that's definitely a positive thing. As you look and we're going to take a spin through some of the statistics here. We see this consistent development towards where you are, where the team is, and how we're implementing the strategy overall. So you look at a couple things here. We did really well. Our net cash was up from last round, so we definitely saw a positive there. We're still making plan improvements when we look at investing. And then we've been able to go ahead and we've been able to pay off some long-term debt as well, which is always a positive too. So when you look at it, I think we're in a very, very strong position. Now, the only thing that I would necessarily say is when we look down here at closing cash position of $7.5 million basically, one bad round or one slight mistake can really throw that into a tailspin, and we don't want to lose momentum with having to take an emergency loan. So just keep an eye on that as we go forward. Make sure that we're solid from a financial point of view. You look at some of the contributing numbers here. Guys, you're over 51% contribution margin, so again, that's awesome as far as I'm concerned. It looks like Adam is where we carried the most amount of inventory, but that said too is that was over 40% margin as well. So really, really good as far as I'm concerned on all these statistics. And then you look at some of the other numbers we have here. Obviously, profit history has continued to go up and up and up. All your return numbers have continued to exceed themselves. I think you're doing a fantastic job when we just look at inside of Team Andrews. So let's see if I can blow this up for us a little bit. The Capstone Courier for Team Andrews compared with everybody else. We had total sales of $190 million. Now that did not come close to Digby in what they've been able to accomplish in terms of sales. But if you go down and you start to look at profit and cumulative profit, you have extremely closed the gap on cumulative profit, right? I mean, we're only $1 million behind them at this point in time when they've been able to generate over almost $100 million more in terms of sales this past round. So you've accelerated how that gap has been closing. Now look at that as well, right? Now they've been able to produce more probably in their specific areas, but their contribution margin is only 29%. When you compare that to your 51.6, again, you're accelerating past them when we look at all those key pieces and parts to this process. Let's go ahead and scan on down. Alright, Team Andrews production again exceeded capacity here, so that's something that we like to see. And when we look down at all the specific numbers here, you can see a couple things are going to come into play with this, right? So Abel and Aker did a fantastic job of not only producing but selling on this past round. And it actually looks like you increased capacity as well. So on those two things, fantastic, right? When we look at aft and agape, again, we're in pretty good shape with those two. Now, Adam's has been the tricky one for us, right? And it's not just tricky for you guys, it's tricky for everybody, and it is the fastest moving segment. So when we look at this, you guys are probably just going to have a decision on your hands on how you want to handle this going forward. I would say that we only sold 543 versus 427. Maybe we look at minimizing production on those just to get rid of inventory, but I think we probably want to take a look at what that category says first. And if we can do that, then I think we'll be in really good shape going forward. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at this one real quick. Alright, so we are in the traditional market. We have Able with 17%, which is coming in basically second place, maybe a little bit, definitely tied for third place here. But you look at the ideal age of 2, you guys are at 245, 1750 to 2750, 26 is good, performance and size. It's a little bit off, right, because we're looking for 8.5 and 11.5, and at 6.5 we're definitely down below that. But it also looks like we've made some changes with Able that are going to allow us to be competitive. They just won't kick in until February of this year. So we know where we stand on that one. But if you also look at it, your actual market share exceeded your potential market share. When we look at the low segment, Acre comes in at 19%. And you can see just from Team Erie's strategy on this, they have dedicated a ton of capacity and investment in production into these two areas. So we're not necessarily going to be able to compete with them, but we want to be able to look in and see what's going to happen here in the future. Now, a 2.9 and a 16.9, we've made some changes on this, but we also see that the changes are going to be able to take effect here in 2024 in March, so I think we're positioned well with this one too. My guess is that we will be able to compete in the last 2 rounds with this and be pretty good as far as that goes. Alright, let's look at high, and I believe this brings us to Adam, which has been our only issue so far, right? 13.4 to 6.6. We've made some changes with Adam, and we're still lagging behind here. But I think this is the one area where we have to say is, you know, is it worth it for us to continue to make these changes to try and keep up with the marketplace? We know that we're getting a 40% margin on everything that we do produce here. We just kind of have to figure out, you know, how we want to attack with Adam, because it keeps us in the market, but just lagging behind everybody else. Which, again, for a broadcast leader strategy, that's good. We're following what we're supposed to be doing. We just kind of have to ask the question of you know, is this working for us? And I think that's a good question for you guys to answer on your own accord. Come down here to performance, and we have Aft at 20% with 934 sold. Everything looks pretty good from meantime before failure. It looks like we had some changes take effect in May of this past year. Pricing looks good. We're able to undercut a little bit, and our age is good too. I think we're probably going to continue on with that same strategy with this one as well. Which then brings us down to Agape. 21% market share. I mean, it's a pretty similar story, right? Where Agape is positioned versus everybody else, we're able to still come in and grab a decent amount of market share. I mean, we're getting maybe 22% market share on both of these, and that's good, right? I mean, it's telling us that we are being able to take up the slack of other people and where they fall down. Now, the only thing that could hinder us here is if Dune and Fume really ramp up production. Now, obviously, they're not stocking out with the products that they have, but if they were able to really dial in to what's going on in the marketplace, maybe they could take market share from us. This would be a similar conversation for Aft as well. But right now, I think you guys are doing well. You're able to undercut the market, still offer a decent product, and make your sales too. All right, so the last thing that we'll look at is just going to be that perceptual map to kind of see where we're falling. And I like to do this just to be able to compare the pieces and parts. Now, the interesting thing about this is with Aft and Agape, you know, you're probably going to make those same incremental changes. Adam, you obviously have a decision on what you want to do. But then when we look at Acre and then when we look at Able, they're going to be repositioned here in the future when some of the decisions that we've made start to kick in. Now, with Able, you have the interesting component to this because you're not really in the traditional market anymore, but what you are in is the low market. And you are far ahead when you look at all the other sources of competition there. Do I think it makes sense to reevaluate and switch market segments for Able? Probably not. I think you spent enough time and money and investment on it to keep it where it is. Maybe we just look at repositioning it a little bit more going into the final 2 rounds because we also don't want to lose all the market share and the sales that we've had for that product. Now with Acre, I think you're probably in the position where the changes you made haven't taken effect yet, and that's why we've kind of fallen out of that market a little bit. But I would also point out that between Ebb and Bead, they are not that much farther ahead than you, so I think you're probably in a pretty darn good position when it comes to that one as well. So anyway, guys, I've been very impressed. I think you guys have picked out your strategy and followed it to a T, been able to implement it. And if you go all the way back to the beginning of the semester, what did we talk about? That was it, right? I don't necessarily care how many sales you have, but I wanted you to be able to function and implement any given strategy that you chose, and you guys have been able to do that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your time and effort on this, and if there's any questions, as always, reach out to me, and I will return your call or email or whatever it might be as soon as I can. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.